Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our channel. Today, I got a special guest who is Mike Fitzpatrick. I've been following Mike on Twitter and had lots of good back and forth with him on, just the science and understanding of insulin. And Mike is a type 1, and so he has to understand insulin well. And he's had a very interesting journey from where he started and then where he evolved to where he got to today. So I want to talk with him about this entire journey. But Mike, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Craig. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. As everybody can see, you are very ripped these days. You've been killing it in the weight room and really prioritizing protein. But talk about where you've started. So let's talk a little bit. I can throw up this photo so people can see your before.
Oh yeah. Yep. There I am. Yeah. So I kind of had a health awakening in November of 2020. I think we were pretty much in the midst of COVID, and I was noticing that a lot of the people that weren't making it were heavier. And personally, I was having a lot of health issues. I had issues with my heart. I had horrible sleep apnea. I had out of control roller coaster blood sugars. And I was just miserable. I was about like 380, 400 pounds. And I was not, I didn't think I would make it to my 40s. I was in that bad of a shape. So I started researching nutrition and health. It became a hobby of mine, more than a hobby. I started living it. I went through several different kind of diet camps. I originally came across kind of like the Jason Fung high fat fasting and chasing ketones and that sort of thing. And then one day I came across a really awesome video by Artie Dykman on the Diet Doctor website after Googling low carb and type 1 diabetes. And that really opened my eyes to the world of kind of Dr. Bernstein and tight glycemic control and low carb, high protein style eating. I kind of adopted that after a while. And I tell you, my blood sugars, I've been under 5% A1C for the past 3 years since adopting that. I've not only lost the weight that I had, but I actually got leaner and put on a lot of muscle following the high protein way of eating. When I first got into dieting, I would do a lot of fasting, like extended water fasting. I really bought into the carbohydrate insulin model. So I was, checking my blood ketones like multiple times a day, wasting, I don't know how much money I waste on those stupid test strips. Thinking, fat's a free food because it doesn't spike my insulin. And actually I did lose a fair amount of weight following that lifestyle, just because I cut out a lot of the junk food that I was eating. But I lost weight, but I didn't get lean. I was still overweight and obese and kind of skinny fat. And with all that fasting, more than anyone, but if you don't weight lift and prioritize protein, you lose a ton of your lean muscle tissue. And that's what I found personally.
Hey everyone, we are on a little safari here in Africa, and I got a little friend right behind me here, eating some grass and some trees. He's not a carnivore, but if you are, it's great to keep your electrolytes up, and especially when you travel, if you keep your electrolytes up, it really helps. I actually personally find I don't go number 2 as often if I don't bring my electrolytes on along when I travel. I'll go 2-3 days without, but Element is great for travel. It's easy to pack. We really like it. And if you go to drinkelement.com, oh, watch out, /Keto Maria, you can get a free sample pack with order. So check it out, drinkelement.com /Keto Maria, and get a free sample pack with any order.
So,
and so that was, so let's talk a little bit, where were you before you dove into diet, as far as like how many units a day of insulin were you using?
Sure.
How much weight did you start at?
Yeah. So let's start with the numbers. So I was about 380 to 400 pounds. I stopped weighing myself after about 380, and I just kept getting bigger and bigger. I remember I was taking an average of 210 units per day. So that was average. So sometimes it would be much more, like closer to 300, even over 300. I was taking monster boluses of like 50 to 80, sometimes even 100 units of insulin. And I just feed that insulin. I inject the insulin, just eat. And today yesterday I used about 24 units of insulin total, and I maintained flat blood sugar. So these days I'm averaging under 30 units per day, and that's dropping down from 210 units. So it's a big change.
Huge, yeah. So so you're close to 400 pounds. How much do you weigh now? How much have you lost?
I am 227 pounds as of this morning.
Awesome. Nice. So yeah, that's a huge change. And let's talk about a little bit about the transition. So you started out with kind of that fasting, high fat approach.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember about where you were when you were doing the very high fat, chasing ketones kind of situation for insulin use? Do you remember what you were doing a day then?
I've actually been researching that and plotting my insulin, and I hope to have that information published soon. But from what I remember, I was probably around maybe 130 or so units, maybe 100 units, somewhere around there. So it definitely wasn't optimal. Definitely wasn't as insulin sensitive as I am now, because I didn't have the lean tissue, the muscle that I was able to put on. But I came to find out that eating the high fat, although it doesn't spike your blood sugar postprandially, it will elevate your basal to a point where you're taking a lot more basal than usual. And if you're eating like a high fat meal at night, I'd eat these high fat meals. I'd wake up with, my blood sugar I'd have like really bad dawn phenomenon and foot on the floor. So my insulin needs were actually going up. So it wasn't until I really cut back on the fat while maintaining low carb and prioritizing protein, that my insulin needs really shot down through the floor. So.
Yeah, that's great. And, we talk a lot on our channel about type 2 diabetics, and the strategies generally for type 2 is you need to shrink your fat cells. You need to make the fat cells smaller so they become more insulin sensitive. And you need to maintain or grow muscle mass, because that gives glucose more places to go. It increases your storage capacity for glucose. And this is a largely kind of a similar path here that you've taken, in that, the early on, the fasting, what does extended fasting do? We know that you lose muscle when you extended fast. They'll claim you don't. Every major study that is will show nitrogen in the urine that comes from breakdown of lean mass. So you're going to lose lean mass when you extended fast. Just for terms for people, when we talk extended fasting, you're talking eating nothing for, longer than 24 hours, right? And what happens is when you then break down and lose lean mass, well, now you have less storage space for the glucose to go, right? And then if you're not shrinking the fat cells enough, you don't have the places to store fat either. Right. With your situation, and we see this commonly as well. And I have a presentation on this that talks about looking at type 1s, and they had in this one study or paper, they had the same amount of carbohydrates and protein in the meals. It's just one meal, they added like 60 grams of more fat. And over the course of the day, there was like a 70% increase in their insulin requirements for the added fat. And that's what, so many people in this community, they get hung up on that postprandial. Well, it's not going to affect my glucose or my insulin right after I eat. So the fat should be kind of a free thing, but it's more of a long tail over 24 hours. And that consistent with what you saw, right?
Yeah. And something else I noticed that a lot of the people that are really into extended fasting, they'll kind of obfuscate the argument saying, oh, your body's not going to break down muscle for energy when it's got all this fat that it can use for energy. But, we eat for two reasons. We eat nitrogen for our muscles, and we eat, the carbon sources like the fat and the carbs for energy. Yes, our body will use our fat for energy, but what's going to, with the protein turnover, our muscles and our lean tissues, our organs, they all need to be replaced and replenished over and over again. So we don't have a mechanism to store the protein that we eat. So it's going to draw on our other lean tissues. So you will, in fact, lose muscle. So every time I hear that, I just kind of cringe. And I look back on the days I wish I could have, if I could start all over again, I would never have done the fasting.
And so many people get sidetracked with that, and it actually can, like you, kind of put you back a little bit in that if you lose the muscle, it hurts your efforts. But the other thing, what you just pointed out, there's still also some energy needs that are required for glucose, because red blood cells don't have mitochondria. So unless you want your red blood cells to die, you got to get glucose from somewhere. And when you're eating nothing, the body has to make it from protein.
Right. Gluconeogenesis, demand-driven process. That's correct.
Exactly. So it needs to do that for some. And then on top of it, like you're explaining, I mean, we're constantly turning over skin, hair, fingernails. There's a constant supply of amino acids that are required by the body. And one of the things I think is really interesting is that the fasting promoters, extended fasting promoters, talk about autophagy and how this autophagy increases. Well, autophagy is for those that don't know, it's your cells being broken into their parts and then new cells being made from them, right? But the thing is, there's two huge issues with this argument. Number one is strength training stimulates autophagy markers as much as anything.
Exactly.
Gain muscle instead of lose it. And the Nobel Prize winner for autophagy, he estimated that every 3 to 4 months, we turn over all of our protein cells through autophagy. So why do we have to speed that up?
And also, I also read that the supposed benefits that they discovered were in experiments with mice, and it was over like the course of a week, which in human time that would be the equivalent for us fasting for like a month, like 40 days or something like that. Which is so you would have to fast 40 days to get the benefits of autophagy that they're talking about in the research papers.
Exactly.
Very good points.
Yeah. So it's we don't recommend extended fasting for anyone. There's only like one scenario, and it's like cancer related, and cancer is an anabolic disease. It loves to grow, so putting your body in a completely catabolic state might be helpful. But outside of that, we don't really recommend it for anyone. But so is this, if I'm right, is this about that time you're talking where you're doing like fasting and whatnot?
Yep, that's about right.
Yeah, so you can definitely see the difference in definition there.
That's right when I kind of made the transition to the high protein, lower fat.
Okay. Yeah, no, the body composition differences are clear. So then you kind of did this transition and you started eating more protein, moderating fat down a bit. You added some more carbs as well. And you said you're in the like 30 units range now for
right
insulin?
Right now I'm less than 30 units a day. So, and I'm I think about 7% body fat right now.
That's amazing. So, how much, do you have any idea how much lean mass you've gained in that time frame?
Oh gosh. Probably 20 pounds or so, I would have to say. Marty Kendall, he actually calculated my FFMI, my fat-free mass index, while I was overweight. And then after I did the fasting and all that, and it showed I went from like a 26 FFMI down to, I think it was 22. So that is a ton of lean tissue that I lost between the time that I lost that weight in those 2 years. And thankfully, I'm back to where I first started when I was really big. So,
yeah, and it's important to have metrics like that, because a lot of people will be like, "Well, I didn't lose muscle." It's so hard to tell. Like physically, you may not notice any strength differences at the time, but if you're pulling, extended fast and you're pulling that muscle away slowly, over time, it's going to affect you. And I always talk about muscle being the down payment on your future vitality, because as we get to 60, 70 years old, building muscle is so hard that you really got to rely on that bank that you created when you're younger.
Yep. And having a lot of muscle that's like metabolic currency. The more muscle you have, you know, it acts as a glucose sink, and you're better able to handle, you know, different like carbohydrate and that sort of thing. I've heard Ted Naiman put it beautifully. He said that type 2 diabetes is as much as being over fat as it is being under muscled. So a lot of the people that are having issues with their blood sugars, they not only need to lose the weight, but they also need to put on lean tissue and build muscle too. So
gain muscle. Yeah. And you're an perfect example of that. You know, you've been able to grow your muscle mass so much that you're incorporating more carbohydrates and still requiring less insulin.
That's right. Yep. I'm eating more carbs than I have before, and I'm taking the least amount of insulin that I've ever taken, really. And in fact, when I was that big, I actually did have type 2 diabetes. I had something called double diabetes, which is where you have type 1 and type 2. Yeah. That's when type 1s, they become so insulin resistant that they develop traits like type 2. So I had a tremendous amount of visceral fat around my tissue, and, you know, I was using a lot of insulin, you know, hyperinsulinemia. But losing all that and putting the muscle on it obviously resolved itself. So, and today I did the calculations, and I'm among the most insulin sensitive people on the planet. I'm in the top like 0.8% of people or something like that with insulin sensitivity, which is bonkers. I never would have thought that. So
yeah, as a type 1 and with your history, that's quite an achievement. That's pretty remarkable. But you know, it really kind of comes back to those tenets. And like you said, Ted Naiman is a big promoter of this as well. It's about the fat and the muscle, right? Yep. I mean, it's so important having more muscle, and not necessarily. And the thing about fat is you want to, you know, it's a sort of a constant fight to be as lean as you can, right? But, you know, within reason, obviously, but it's also about the fat cells themselves, in that, you know, you can have somebody who's quite metabolically healthy, you know, even though they have an extra 10, 20 pounds on them, as long as the fat cells are small. And that's the key, is that the fat cells are happy when they're small fat cells. So if genetically you have more fat cells, you could have a little bit more body fat on you, but as long as the fat cells are generally pretty small, they're insulin sensitive and your body's happy.
Right.
If there's another person that's got not a lot of fat cells, they have to stay pretty lean to keep those fat cells small. And we run into those. And I thought of this when you mentioned being kind of dual type 1 and type 2. We had somebody that did it the other way, in that she was a very low personal fat threshold. And so she never really gained weight no matter what she ate. At least you didn't see it on her body, right? Because she didn't have a lot of fat cells. But she had rampant, you know, blood sugars that were through the roof. She never really treated it. And she just kept eating all the crap because she didn't gain weight, and she burned out her beta cells. So now she isn't producing enough insulin, and she's also insulin resistant, even though she was like 110 pounds. Oh,
and I remember you had another person that you helped coach who was, I think, like 600 pounds, and his A1C was like 5.3.
That's the other end of it, right? Yeah. There's he I believe is one of the few people that genetically can create new fat cells later in age. Usually most of us, when we're toddlers, we create new fat cells, and we just kind of fill up and empty the ones we have after that point. And for whatever reason, the body just stops making lots of new fat cells for most people. Some people like him, and I think it probably, any of these people you see get like 600 pounds probably are the ones that genetically can create new fat cells. And that's why they can get so big, right? And he did, and he was 575 pounds.
It's crazy.
Yeah, his triglycerides are like 70. His glucose was like 90. I mean, his insulin was like 3 or 4 or whatever it was.
Yeah, you never think that. Yeah.
Yeah, you never think that, but it again shows it all starts in those fat cells. If those fat cells, if you keep making new ones and keep them small, the body metabolically looks fine. From, you know, all the blood markers and insulin and all that.
Exactly.
It shows the power of those fat cells and how much they control all that. But, you know, in your case, you've shrunk them obviously a ton. So you've got great metabolic flexibility from the fat storage side, and then the growth of the muscle gives you the storage of the glucose side. So I mean, it all makes sense when you look at it from that perspective, why your insulin requirements are so low.
Yep, I love it, and I feel great. I feel fantastic every day. I'm doing lots of exercise. I wake up and I do my 35 minutes of fasted cardio in the morning on my air bike. There I am.
Yeah.
And then I make sure I get my 10,000 steps. And then at night, I'm usually doing about an hour and a half to 2 hours of weight training. You can see on my board behind me, that's my current splits that I do. And I'm training and eating like a professional athlete right now. And I feel great. So
that's awesome. You're prepping for a competition, right?
Yes, I decided to throw my hat in the ring as in a bodybuilding competition. So I'll be competing in classic physique in June, which is about 2 months away. So
awesome.
I'm going to just try this, and it'll be the whole process has been very cathartic for me. I've been morbidly obese my entire life, so this is kind of my gift to myself, a kind of final farewell to being overweight and obese for my whole life. And this is just saying, I made it and I'm here. And I succeeded. Awesome. And I kept it off. I've been able to keep it off for about 4 years now. So
that's amazing. I wish you all the luck with that event. I'm sure you're going to kill it. So
it's a lot to learn. But it's been difficult, but
yeah. Well, I love your story. I love that you show what's possible, with type 1s to get to those levels of, insulin requirements, and what you've done with your body composition is really amazing. So I just wanted to come on here and share your story because it's so inspirational. Where can people find you? Is your Twitter account pretty much the place they can find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter it is Mike Fitz. You can follow me, and I'm active on there a few times a day, and I'm really into normalizing blood sugar control for people, and I'm into nutrition and exercise and that sort of thing. So look me up. I'll be happy to DM you if you have any questions or anything.
Awesome. I'll put the link below to your account so everybody can find you.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right, Craig. Thanks for having me on. Say hi to Maria for me.
Will do. Take care.
All right.
When I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed with PCOS, acid reflux, depression, and IBS. Instead of taking those prescription drugs, I decided to change my life with food. Yes, food healed me, and it's healed so many of my clients over the past 20 years of working with people. If you are interested in transforming your life, check out ketomaria.com. I'd be honored to help you.